Okay, we'll give it a moment for people to check in and get ready. And I'll wait for confirmation that we are live. Okay, good stuff. Okay, thanks, Walter. Appreciate that. My name is Darrin Hotte, and it's good to be with you. This is the, let me just give you some introduction info here. Virtual Expo by Mediate BC, Conflict Resolution Week, which they do every year, province-wide, big event, and that's what this is a part of. And you can see some other videos on the Mediate BC site, some great stuff. I looked at it today, and every one of those videos has some brilliant things in it, so I encourage you to go take a look at that, get some more information there. And I also need to tell you that the opinions expressed here are not necessarily those of Mediate BC. They made me say that. So I'm guessing they'll agree with most of what I say, at least, though. Let me tell you a story. One day I was talking to a lawyer about how to prepare for a mediation session. And this lawyer was talking about how their process is to get the right documents together, to make sure that they have all the information, that clients understand what the law means, all those things, which is brilliant. And the lawyers, I work with lots of lawyers, love them. They're an important part of the process and in the separation mediation work that I do. And that's what they bring to the table. It's such a good grasp of that, and that's super important. But he was missing the most important thing. The thing that makes a mediation session become efficient and effective and helps clients get really what they need. That's what was missing. So let me take a time out on the story, tell you a bit about me. I am a separation and divorce mediator. I also do family enterprise advising and work there. And I also, because my background is in faith-based organizations, I do some work going back into those places to intervene and teach, and that's another part of what I do. Coaching and teaching is a big part of it as well. So that's who I am. My company's New Solution Mediation, and I'm married and have two amazing kids, amazing family, very, very lucky that way. So back to the story. I'm talking to this lawyer and we're having this conversation, somebody who I really respected, and I talked about how my experience is that there are times in mediation sessions when a mediation session gets stalled, gets stuck, and can go off the rails. It gets really difficult. And sometimes it's because you don't have the right documentation or not enough documentation, or you need to get more information, or you're disagreeing about what the information means. So that can happen. That's part of it. And my guess, though, my experience, is that about one time out of 20, and that's a stat that I made up, but I bet it's not far off, about one time out of 20, a mediation session can stall out or get really tough because of that those sorts of things. But I'm thinking 19 times out of 20, mediation sessions get stalled out, they get difficult because the clients have their hearts and their minds in a funny place, or it becomes really emotional. There's something internal to them, something inside them that's not quite right, and that's what stalls it out. And then I was thinking about it later, that I think that's the same for me personally. When I'm in conflict, this is not just in mediation sessions, but for me personally, when I get stuck in conflict, when I'm just not going well, I'm frustrated, It's often usually because, probably 19 times out of 20, that there's something off in me that needs to shift, needs to change. And that's what I need to work on. Sometimes it's about information that's needed. Sometimes it's disagreeing on information. But most of the time, it's where my heart's at, where my head's at, and the emotion that I bring into it. So here's some things that I think, just a few tips that I like to share with my clients. I share them even with friends sometimes. And honestly, they're things that I try to do myself to make sure that I'm in a good place, so that when I'm in conflict or when I'm going through something, that I can do it really well. Let me just share a few things with you. The first thing is, I really think, really important, that to consider that there are different ways to look at fairness. Not everybody views fairness the same way. I had some clients this week who I met with them separately before we meet together for a mediation session, and both of them said at some point in our meeting, they said, look, I just want this to be fair. I just want this to be fair. And they did. They absolutely did. Brilliant. And most of my clients say the very same thing. We just want this to be fair. Well, if that's the case, then why don't we just get together and sort it out, and we're done in 10 minutes and it's over? Because people have a different idea of what fairness looks like. We all have different perspectives, different experiences. And so fairness to one person may look very different than fairness to another person. And so going into a conversation, and so this is a personal conversation you have, could be a workplace thing, could be a family member, could be a neighbor, whoever. Going with remembering that there's probably more than one way to look at this. There's probably information that I don't have. Second thing is this, similar to the first one. Try to understand the other person's point of view. So try to climb into their mind a little bit and say, okay, get curious. What could they be all about here? What's it they're concerned about? What are their fears? What are their values here that are maybe feel like they're being violated? What is their point of view? I was in a mediation session recently with some clients of mine, and meeting with the one party before the session, and he had a very clear idea of a solution on one topic that they had to solve. So we talked about that solution and said, here's why, and he had some good reasons for it. And I encouraged him to be open to listen to the other party and see what they had to say about it. And I saw him kind of pause when we talked about that, and he said, sort of, that somehow landed with him. It sunk in. So we got to the session later on, and we got to that topic. And he's laid out his rationale for why something should happen this way, this way, this way. And the other party listened. And then that other person started to talk about their view of the situation. And there was a few facts that the first person didn't know. And it just changed it. And as a matter of fact, instead of doing anything that he was initially proposing, they didn't do any of that at all. They did something very different just because he listened to that other point of view, got another perspective. He was willing to listen, and it was terrific. And so they got through it, made the agreements, went on to some other things, and they're doing really well. Here's the third thing. Physiology. Something practically that you can do in a conversation or when you're preparing for a conversation, right? Two things. When we get emotional in stress or in conflict, what happens is that our brains change and our amygdala fires and prefrontal cortex shuts down, and it makes it very difficult to, try to negotiate when the part of your brain that does the negotiating part stops working, and your inner 2-year-old gets going and takes over control. That's a lousy place to negotiate from. Lousy way to kind of try to listen to somebody. And so, two things I would share with you. Breathing. Just in that moment, breathe. If you breathe, and here's a pattern you can try. Breathe in for 4 seconds, hold it for 4 seconds, and then breathe out for 8 seconds. Doing that helps to regulate your brain a little bit. So in this conversation that you're in the midst of it, or when you're getting ready to go into it, you can do that to settle down your brain. So let's try it. I'll show you how it works. Ready? Breathe in, and do this at home. I'm watching. Breathe in for 4 seconds. Hold it for 4. And breathe out for 8. Simple, pretty easy. You can do that. Do that a little bit while you're in a conversation. That will help to settle down your mind and settle your emotion so you won't feel so threatened. And the other thing you can do to help to regulate your brain and to put you in the right frame of mind is self-talk. You know, in those moments, here's what happens to me in a mediation session. Not all the time, but occasionally we'll get into it. We'll be an hour or two into a session or something. And one person can get frustrated and they can say, Darrin, I hate this. I don't know why we're doing this. It's a waste of time. I told you we can't let's get emotional. And he's the one getting emotional. And we got to just stick with the facts. We get on with this. This is like costing too much money. You're too expensive and this is not working. Blah, 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 blah. Occasionally that happens. So what do? Well, internally, it's hard not to feel attacked. So I sort of defense mode and my body changes. I'm ready to, the amygdala is firing and I'm ready to fight the bear or run away from it, right? Fight or flight. I feel under threat. One of the things I do is this. I tell myself what I think is true, which is this person is really having a difficult time right now. This person is in a lot of pain in this life situation. This is probably not really about me. This is probably about their frustration, right? They're not getting what they expected. This is taking too long. This is too difficult. All those things, that's pretty normal to feel that way sometimes. And so I say to myself what I want to be, which is incredible in this moment. I say to myself, this person is so lucky to have me. I'm going to be absolutely brilliant right now in this moment so that I help them get through this and to move forward. And so you kind of live into that and make that happen. So I'm breathing and I'm doing the self-talk thing, which then settles down my brain and helps me to be ready to be really great in that moment for that person or those people. So we can do that, and I do that in my own situations when I'm in conflict. I breathe. I tell myself how I want to be in that moment. So that's number 3, changing your physiology by doing those 2 things. 4th thing is this. I speak to people fairly regularly about this, and it's a concept that makes a big difference for me. And it's this. Every word that we say, everything that we do, the choices that we make, every day, all day, throughout our lives, that is the story of our life. So we're writing our life story all the time. Doing this here tonight with you, this has been just part of my life story, part of my life history, part of my record that I did this here on this night, this time. And so when we're in conflict, to be aware that how we handle that, how we do that, contributes to our life story. It's another sentence in another chapter of our book, our biography. And so when I'm working with clients, like separation clients that have kids, it's one thing I bring up is like, how can you do something now in this moment that will be great for your family story, for your family history, be an encouragement to your kids, because you're writing history right now. And, honestly, I wish I thought of that more often when I'm in conflict, that I'm writing my life story, but sometimes I do. And when I do, I think this. 1 month, 1 year, 2 years, 5 years from now, how do I want to look back on this moment? If I was to go ahead and write a newspaper article about this moment that I'm in conflict, like down the road, 6 months from now, what would I like that article to say? What would I want the headline to read? Darrin handles conflict brilliantly in this moment, whatever it is. If we remember that, and if I remember that when I'm in conflict, I'm writing my life story, and I'm in control of that story. I'm the writer. That can help me, certainly helps me when I'm in those moments to be my best. So I'm going to take some questions in just a little bit. Some people that are commenting here already, I see, but I'll take some questions in just a moment. But let me just recap. 4 things that I think can help us do conflict much better, and they will really make conflict more efficient, more effective, it's just like adding jet fuel to a plane, and just it's so efficient, so travel so far and get so much done. The first one is to remember that there are different ways to think about fairness. Your way is not the only way. There really are other ways to look at this. And the second thing is, what about that other person's point of view? Not just about fairness, but what do they see? What do they experience? Third thing is to manage yourself and your own physiology, right? Breathe, self-talk, do something to put yourself, your brain in a better spot so you can be your best in that moment. And then the fourth thing, as I said, if we can be conscious that you are writing your life history, you're writing the book as that's happening, what do you want that book to say? So those are four things. I'm going to look and see if there's any questions. I'm going to give you guys a chance to ask some questions. We'll see what we have here. People are talking about the breathing tip, and appreciate that. That's good. There is as I'm waiting for some questions or some thoughts to come, I'll just a couple more things that I can add. I'm amazed at how often I don't know everything. It's going to be amazing to my wife, who's maybe watching this. I don't know. I'm often surprised at what I don't know. And when I get curious and ask questions and try to wonder, I learn things. And lots of times in mediation where I think I've kind of got someone's situation figured out, and I don't. It doesn't come. It doesn't come out of my mind. It comes out of their explaining and what their experience is, information that I never imagined. So, I mean, being curious and wondering what's going on for the other person, being open to that, it can be quite amazing. So, here's a question. Does breathing look weird in the middle of a conflict? Good question, Mom. Thanks for asking. You can do it in a way that's not obvious. Okay, so if you're doing this, that's going to look weird. You don't have to do that. You can just do it without anybody noticing. You just, okay, I'll do it. Tell me if you notice. I just did it. You probably didn't notice. Especially if you're really mad at me, you're not really noticing those things. So I have a chance to do that and do that well. A couple other things here. We'll see what else. Comment here that about the breathing and does it take practice? Yeah, it does take practice. I don't always remember to do it. I don't always think about doing it. Sometimes I do it naturally because I've practiced, and other times I find myself, I've stopped breathing because you're so stressed, right? And so hopefully in those moments you can remember and stop and go, okay, I need to breathe. I need to try breathing. But practicing makes it kind of natural, like any skill that you practice, you can get good at it. Self-talk is the same thing. I don't always think about it, but I try to, and it's becoming more of a habit in my life. And so it pops up more often. It can be helpful more often. So if there's any other questions, happy to answer them. And as I said before, please go back and look at those other videos that are on the BC site. A lot of great resources there, and the people who have done those videos, some of these people are good friends of mine, and I have a lot of respect for who they are and what they're sharing. It comes not just out of their professional experience, but just who they are, which is terrific. So. So unless there's more questions, and if there's more questions, here's what I'd say. Please feel free to connect. Give me a call, send me an email. My company, New Solution Mediation, and newsolutionmediation.com. You can get me there. Happy to have a conversation with you, answer some questions. I talk to you about something that's going on, even just to kind of consult with you for a few minutes on the phone to give you some thoughts about something you might be facing and some ways you can get through it. Happy to do that. And again, go to mediatebc.com, and there's also the website, there'sanotherstory.com. Some great stuff there. I encourage you to go do that. So anyway, guys, thanks for listening. Appreciate it. Hopefully this is helpful, and we'll see you some other time. Thank you very much.